Did you know that some ancient Gospels were intentionally excluded from the Bible? These hidden texts could change everything we know about Jesus and his message. What are these secrets, and why have they been buried for centuries? Pay attention, because near the end of this video, you will discover truths that have remained in the dark for thousands of years. But first, let's unravel the mysteries behind how Christianity truly began. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew. Part 1. The disjointed origins of early Christianity. Imagine this. The origins of Christianity were not a story of unity, but one of conflict, power struggles, and hidden truths. What if I told you the New Testament you know today is only part of the story, a carefully crafted version designed to silence alternative voices? Curious? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about early Christianity. But first, let's dive into the fractured beginnings of this faith and uncover why its true origins were far from harmonious. 1. The fractured beginnings. When you think of early Christianity, what comes to mind? Perhaps a group of disciples united and spreading the teachings of Jesus with one voice. But the reality is much more complex and far more fascinating. The early Christian movement was anything but unified. Different communities interpreted Jesus' teachings in wildly different ways. Some groups emphasized his divinity, while others viewed him as a wise teacher. These factions didn't just debate, they competed fiercely, each vying for dominance and the right to define what Christianity truly meant. And then there's the New Testament, the cornerstone of Christian faith today. Did you know it wasn't always a fixed collection of books? In fact, it was curated by early church leaders who chose certain texts and discarded others. Their goal? To create a singular narrative that would solidify their authority and suppress dissenting views. But here's the kicker. Not all of these texts disappeared. The so-called lost Gospels, like the Gospel of Mary or the Gospel of Judas, survived in fragments, waiting to be rediscovered. These alternative Gospels offer a glimpse into a Christianity that could have been one where different voices were heard and different ideas about Jesus were explored. Have you ever heard of these lost Gospels? What do you think their inclusion might have meant for Christianity as we know it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. 2. The power struggles within. Why were these alternative Gospels suppressed? The answer lies in the fierce power struggles of the time. Early church leaders knew that controlling the narrative meant controlling the faith. And control they did. Texts that didn't align with their vision were labeled heretical, their authors condemned, and their followers persecuted. But these heretical ideas weren't necessarily wrong. They were just different. They represented a rich tapestry of thought, offering alternate interpretations of Jesus' life and message. Imagine for a moment, what if the Gospel of Judas had been included in the New Testament? How would that have reshaped our understanding of betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption? What if the Gospel of Mary had highlighted the critical role of women in early Christianity? The possibilities are as intriguing as they are unsettling. Let's pause for a moment. What do you think? Should these alternative texts have been included, or was the early church right to exclude them? Let me know in the comments. I'm eager to hear your thoughts. 3. Hidden truths waiting to be uncovered. Over the centuries, many of these lost texts were forgotten, buried in time. But modern discoveries, like the Nag Hammadi Library in Egypt, have brought them back into the spotlight. These discoveries remind us that history is never as simple as it seems. The early Christian movement wasn't a monolithic force. It was a dynamic, evolving phenomenon shaped by competing ideologies and diverse voices. And while the New Testament tells one story, these alternative texts reveal another, one of complexity, diversity, and unanswered questions. So, what does this mean for us today? If Christianity's origins were so fragmented, how should we interpret the faith now? But the divide isn't just about belief. What about the hidden roles of women, the underground leaders of early Christianity? Don't leave the screen. Let's find out right now. Part 2. Women in Early Christianity. the hidden leaders. What if I told you that the early Christian church wasn't just shaped by men? What if the true architects of the faith have been erased from history? Today, we're uncovering the stories of the hidden women who defied tradition, led congregations, and even claimed the title of apostles. Stay tuned, because what we're about to reveal might change the way you see early Christianity forever. When we think of early Christianity, the image that often comes to mind is a male-dominated movement led by towering figures like Peter, Paul, and James. The New Testament, after all, seems to center almost exclusively on men. But history has a habit of leaving out voices that challenge the status quo. And in the case of early Christianity, many of those voices belong to women. Let's start with Phoebe, a name that appears only briefly in the Bible, yet holds immense significance. Mentioned in Paul's letter to the Romans, she's described as a deacon and a benefactor, not just a follower. Phoebe was a leader in her community, entrusted by Paul himself to deliver and explain his letter to the Roman church. Imagine the trust and authority that required. Yet, how often is her name included in the broader narrative of Christianity? Then there's Eunia, another intriguing figure. Paul refers to her as outstanding among the apostles. Yes, an apostle. For centuries, her role was downplayed, even erased. In some translations of the Bible, Eunia's name was deliberately altered to sound masculine, Eunias, to fit a narrative where apostleship was exclusively male. Think about that for a moment. An apostle, a title reserved for the highest level of spiritual leadership, hidden in plain sight simply because she was a woman. This isn't just a historical oversight. It's a rewriting of history itself. What does it tell us about the power dynamics within early Christianity? And more importantly, what does it say about the lengths to which some were willing to go to maintain control over the narrative? But Phoebe and Eunia weren't anomalies. Women played a significant role across the early Christian world. They hosted churches in their homes, financed missionary journeys, and provided spiritual guidance to entire communities. In fact, some scholars argue that without women, Christianity might never have spread as far or as quickly as it did. But why were these women's stories erased or diminished? What forces shaped the narrative we've come to accept? To uncover that, we need to examine the cultural and political landscape of the early church, a world where power was everything. So, what do you think? Why do you believe women like Phoebe and Eunia were left out of the spotlight? Is it a case of deliberate erasure or something more complex? Share your theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're as fascinated by these hidden stories as I am, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe for more revelations like this. Let's uncover the truth together. As promised at the start, now we'll dive into the most intriguing secret of this video, the shocking revelations hidden in the alternative gospels. What forbidden truths do these lost texts hold? And why were they kept out of sight for centuries? Let's uncover the mystery together. Part 3. The Alternative Gospels. Shocking Revelations. Have you ever wondered if the Bible you know is only half the story? What if I told you there are ancient texts, lost and suppressed, that paint a radically different picture of Jesus and his teachings? These are the Alternative Gospels, and their revelations will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Stay with me, because this is where things get truly mind-bending. 1. Introduction to the Alternative Gospels. For centuries, the New Testament has been the cornerstone of Christian belief, a sacred text studied and revered by millions. But what if I told you it wasn't the only story? Hidden in the shadows of history are the Alternative Gospels. Ancient writings like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, and the Gospel of Judas. These texts were excluded from the official canon, labeled as heretical or even dangerous by early church leaders. But why? What secrets did they contain that the church didn't want you to see? 2. Unveiling the Gospel of Thomas. Let's start with the Gospel of Thomas, one of the most controversial and intriguing texts ever discovered. This gospel is not a narrative like the others. Instead, it's a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus. But these sayings are unlike anything in the New Testament. For instance, in one passage, Jesus says, "Split a piece of wood. I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me." This mystical, almost cryptic language suggests a deeply personal connection to the divine, one that exists outside of organized religion. Could this mean that early Christianity was more about inner spirituality than following strict doctrines? What do you think? Could Christianity have evolved into something entirely different if this gospel had been included in the Bible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. 3. The Gospel of Mary, a woman's voice silenced. Next, we have the Gospel of Mary, a text that challenges traditional narratives not just about Jesus, but also about the role of women in early Christianity. In this gospel, Mary Magdalene is portrayed as one of Jesus' closest disciples, a figure of wisdom and authority. One striking moment comes when the male disciples question why Jesus would choose to reveal profound truths to Mary instead of them. Her response: she calmly explains what she has learned, showing a deep understanding of Jesus' teachings. Why, then, was this gospel excluded? Was it because it elevated Mary Magdalene to a status equal to or even greater than the male apostles? What does this omission tell us about how history is written and who gets to write it? If you've never heard of the Gospel of Mary before, you're not alone. And that's exactly why it's so important to talk about it. Could it be that the early church suppressed this text to maintain a patriarchal narrative? Share your theories in the comments. I'd love to hear them. For the Gospel of Judas, betrayal or sacrifice? Perhaps the most shocking alternative gospel is the Gospel of Judas. Yes, that Judas, the man who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. But here's the twist. This gospel portrays Judas not as a traitor, but as a trusted disciple who carried out Jesus' will. According to this text, Jesus instructed Judas to betray him, saying it was necessary to fulfill his destiny. This flips the entire narrative on its head. Instead of being a villain, Judas becomes a tragic hero, a man who sacrificed his reputation and life to help Jesus achieve his ultimate mission. Can you imagine how differently Judas might be viewed if this gospel had been part of the New Testament? And what does this mean for our understanding of betrayal, sacrifice, and destiny? It's mind-blowing, isn't it? 5. The implications of these texts. These alternative gospels challenge so many fundamental beliefs. Was Jesus truly divine, or was he a revolutionary teacher? Were women silenced not because they lacked wisdom, but because their voices threatened the established order? And what does it say about the early church that it felt the need to suppress these texts rather than let them coexist with the canon? Think about it. If these gospels had been included, would Christianity, as we know it, even exist? Would its core teachings and practices be the same? These are questions that go beyond theology. They touch the very essence of how we understand history, power, and truth. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever heard of these alternative gospels before? Do you think they should have been included in the Bible? Why or why not? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights might inspire someone else to see things in a whole new light. The alternative gospels are more than just ancient texts. They're windows into a world of diverse beliefs, heated debates, and powerful stories that could have changed the course of history. They remind us that history is never as straightforward as it seems, and that the truth often lies in the shadows. As promised at the beginning of this video, it's time to dive into one final, mind-blowing revelation: the forgotten cultural influences that shaped Christianity. This is where the story takes a truly unexpected turn. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. Part 4. Cultural Influences. Christianity's Forgotten Roots. Did you know that the Christianity we know today may not be as European as we think? The roots of this global faith stretch deep into the Middle East and North Africa, where ancient myths, customs, and traditions stick around. What we're about to uncover may completely change how you view Christianity's origins. 1. Introduction. Christianity's hidden cultural foundations. Most people think of Christianity as a European religion, something that emerged from the teachings of the apostles in the Roman Empire. But the true origins of Christianity are far more complex and diverse. To understand Christianity as we know it, we must look at its roots, which are deeply embedded in the cultures of the Middle East and North Africa. As Christianity spread across the globe, it didn't just adopt local languages or customs. It absorbed entire mythologies and traditions, creating a fusion of beliefs that laid the foundation for the church we recognize today. But how much of Christianity is truly original, and how much of it was shaped by the cultures it encountered along the way? And more importantly, what has been lost in this process of cultural blending? 2. The Middle East and North Africa, the birthplace of Christianity. Let's start with the geography of Christianity's birth. Christianity wasn't born in the Roman Empire, nor in Europe. It originated in the cradle of civilization, the Middle East. Jesus, his apostles, and the early Christians were all from this region, which was home to a rich tapestry of cultures, religions, and beliefs. For centuries, the Middle East and North Africa were cultural crossroads where Greek, Roman, Persian, Egyptian, and Jewish traditions blended. The region had long been home to polytheistic beliefs, mystery religions, and esoteric philosophies, many of which left an indelible mark on Christianity. Take, for example, the concept of a divine savior, a theme that appeared in various forms across ancient religions of the region long before Jesus. The story of Horus, the Egyptian god born of a virgin, or Mithras, a Persian god who died and was resurrected, shares remarkable similarities with the narrative of Jesus. Were these parallels mere coincidence, or did early Christians absorb these ideas from surrounding cultures? 3. That the influence of mystery religions. Speaking of ancient religions, we can't ignore the profound influence of mystery cults, which flourished in the Mediterranean and Near Eastern worlds. These secretive religious societies, many of which involved rituals of death, rebirth, and resurrection, had a powerful impact on the early development of Christianity. For example, the worship of Isis and Osiris in Egypt involved rituals that closely resembled the Christian sacraments of baptism and communion. Did these early Christian rites borrow from these traditions, or were they part of a shared cultural heritage in the ancient world? Some scholars believe that these mystery religions helped shape early Christian practices, giving birth to a religion that would blend the old and the new. Could Christianity be a more culturally diverse creation than we've been led to believe? I want to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And let's discuss how these cultural exchanges shaped what we practice today. 4. Greek influence, philosophy, and the New Testament. As Christianity spread into the Hellenistic world, it encountered Greek philosophy, which had a profound effect on the development of Christian doctrine. Think about the New Testament itself. It was written in Greek, and many of the earliest Christians were influenced by Greek philosophical ideas, such as those of Plato and Aristotle. Take the Gospel of John, for instance. The Logos concept, which refers to the word or divine reason, is heavily influenced by Greek philosophy, specifically the ideas of Heraclitus and Stoicism. This philosophical influence helped shape Christian ideas of the nature of God, creation, and the soul. It's fascinating to think about how early Christians, many of whom were raised in a Greek-speaking world, incorporated these philosophical ideas into their faith. So, what does this tell us about the evolution of Christian thought? Was Christianity always a pure religion, or was it a product of the cultural and intellectual forces around it? 5. The influence of Roman culture. In addition to Greek and Egyptian influences, Christianity also absorbed elements of Roman culture. As the Roman Empire expanded, Christianity spread along with it, absorbing Roman practices and beliefs in the process. The Roman Empire was home to many gods and goddesses, and the imperial cult, which deified emperors, played a significant role in the political and cultural landscape. One of the most significant cultural shifts was the transformation of Christianity from a persecuted sect to the official religion of the Roman Empire under Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. With this transition, Christianity became deeply intertwined with Roman politics and culture, resulting in the Church's later influence over European kingdoms and, eventually, the entire Western world. Think about how Roman culture influenced Christian symbols like the cross, which was originally a Roman instrument of torture and execution, but became the most recognized symbol of the Christian faith. How did Christianity transform this symbol into a representation of hope and salvation? These cultural influences raise some important questions. What would Christianity have looked like if it had not been exposed to the Greek, Roman, and Egyptian cultures? Would it have looked radically different? Or would it have remained a small, sectarian movement in the Middle East? 6. The legacy of cultural exchange. So, what does this blending of cultures mean for Christianity as we know it today? The early church was far from monolithic. It was a dynamic, evolving entity that absorbed elements from the cultures and societies around it. Christianity became a global religion not because of a singular, fixed set of beliefs, but because it adapted and absorbed new ideas, allowing it to resonate with diverse peoples and cultures across the world. This process of cultural exchange has left its mark on nearly every aspect of Christianity, from the rituals we observe to the beliefs we hold dear. But the question remains, how much of what we practice now is truly original to the faith, and how much has been shaped by the cultures it encountered along the way? Think about this. How do traditions evolve, and how does that affect what we believe today? I'd love to hear how you see the relationship between culture and religion, and whether you think Christianity's cultural influences have shaped its message for better or for worse. As we reflect on the forgotten roots of Christianity, we see a religion that has always been in dialogue with the cultures around it. The church has long been accused of hiding or distorting its origins, but the truth is far more nuanced and far more fascinating. By uncovering the hidden secrets of early Christianity, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity and richness of this ancient faith. What do you think? Did any of these revelations surprise you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video intriguing, please share it with your friends. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Ancient Faith Exploration's channel, and click the notification bell so you won't miss more historical deep dives.